What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Beyond the Junkyard podcast. I am your host, Junkyard James. With me, as always, the wonderful Cody Marinara, rocking the Commanders uniform, their first playoff victory in 19 years. So congratulations there. How has your week been, my friend?
Sir, to say that I haven't gotten very much sleep this week is an understatement. It's been a week. It's been good. Maybe if you didn't get off and join the bandwagon, you would enjoy this too. Just kidding. Just kidding. I love you. So yeah. Safe to say Sunday night was a night. That was wild. My hands were sweating, but we won the game on a doink into the uprights, because why not? That's the way our team has been doing this year. And hey, listen, I don't care if we get blown out on Saturday against the Lions. I'm just glad to be here, and it's on and up for the Commandos. Your team has they've got a fight on their hands this upcoming Sunday night. There's a reason why it is the primetime game on Sunday night, because that's going to be the game of the week. What's your confidence level as you face Mr. Jackson? Ooh.
Knowing the weather we're going to get, I'm a little bit more confident than if it would be like perfect weather conditions. I think the weather will play more in our favor than against us. But if it comes down to a game of who can make a last second field goal to win, I don't feel confident at all in my kicker, because that's exactly how we lost last year to Kansas City in the second round, and I just have no faith in Tyler Bass to make clutch kicks. But I don't know if you've heard, the wind, the real field temperature on game night will be for the Buffalo Bills will be a nice -3 degrees.
Lovely.
Yeah. So this is going to be a game of who can control the line of scrimmage. But yeah, that's that. And then we got good old DJ Wavy D in the chat saying EAGLES Eagles. Maybe.
We don't like your kind, sir. Your fans are a disgrace.
And then we got good old We Too Deep saying, I thought this was a wrestling podcast. It is, but we like to introduce the show and let people come in before we give our hot takes. Anyways, let's bring it back to pro wrestling for now. If you see in the title of the video, we ask a big question tonight. Is AEW back? And we'll answer that question here in a minute. But first, we have to thank our affiliate partners. As always, in the description below are the links. WWE Shop. We are just a couple weeks away from the Royal Rumble, and we got some good names in the Royal Rumble already confirmed. CM Punk, John Cena, LA Knight, amongst others. And so you got to represent who you want to win that Royal Rumble, and you can use our WWE Shop link below to do that. Get your merchandise so that it arrives before the Royal Rumble. We got Cody Rhodes fighting Kevin Owens, and DJ Wavy D's in the chat giving my answers away. But anyways, already starting, yes sir. But yeah, go to WWE Shop, link in the description. Same thing with StubHub. Maybe you want to go to the Royal Rumble in Indianapolis, Indiana, be with Pat McAfee's kind of people. You can use their StubHub link in the description and support the podcast that way. But the biggest way that you can support the podcast You see that website right here in the bottom left of your screen, beyondthejunkyard.com. That's our merch site. Buy some merch. I'm still waiting. I want to show off one of the dog tag necklaces, and they haven't shipped it yet. I ordered it at the same time I ordered all the other shirts that have already came in that I've worn already. I haven't seen it, so I don't know if I'm ever going to get it.
Listen, maybe there's just a really big back order on dog tags.
It could be, and maybe
maybe there's a dog tag shortage.
Maybe the printer broke or something, and they can't print the design. I don't know, but we'll hopefully it comes in soon, and I can show you what those dog tags look like. That way, buy the shirts, buy the merch, support the podcast that way. We got a big show for you tonight. Never mind. It's a big show. But we're going to talk about the in-ring return of Kenny Omega. What that means, I think, for AEW. Maybe is Kenny Omega the key to the ratings decline, and now they're going to go back up, or are ratings just dead in the ground? We're going to talk about the reappearance of Megan Bayne into AEW. For those who didn't know, she was on in AEW a while ago on Dark for a couple episodes, if you ever watched AEW Dark. But she's back, and she's signed with AEW, and we'll talk about what that might mean for the women's division. But first, we want to be fair and balanced in our coverage of the wrestling companies. So let's spend a few minutes, and there was a big announcement today about the WWE extending their partnership for a multi-year deal with TNA, essentially being a pathway for NXT wrestlers and TNA wrestlers to, for a lack of better term, enter the forbidden door, go to the other shows, become exposed to every other fan base, kind of like what Joe Hendry did and what Jordan Grace has done and what NXT has been doing in the past year or so. And so my question to you, my friend, is, knowing this deal, what is your reaction to this extended partnership with NXT, WWE, and TNA?
I think that it is a very calculated decision for WWE, TKO, Endeavor to do this kind of partnership and extend it with TNA. I want to say it's a good thing for both, although I do have some questions as to why the extension is still going on. While, yes, it does create the opportunity to have TNA performers to be on a show with the wider audiences, because Access TV is where Impact is still coming on, and they don't get exactly, they don't reach a whole lot of homes, or at least as much as the CW now does. And maybe that's what the biggest thing about it is when NXT was on USA, it's still a big, a big channel, but being on the CW, you're on cable, you're on a much bigger platform. So maybe that was the biggest thing, was that, TNA, if they felt that it was a really good deal that they did previously, that the extension just means that they're on a much bigger network now with NXT being on the CW. More eyes on TNA wrestlers, maybe could transition to people wanting to watch Access TV and watch TNA, but also to maybe crossbreed the NXT stars on the TNA and just create some buzz on that as well. I think that it is. I have questions with this. I do, because what's exactly the biggest reason for the extension of the partnership is NXT not creating enough of these bigger stars that they got to infiltrate Jordan Grace and Joe Hendry and whomever to bolster the NXT shows and roster. Is the NIL stuff for WWE? Is it kind of not doing as, I don't want to say as well, but I would assume that the WWE NIL is going to take time for those people to come up through the PC, and you're not going to get those talents to come up quickly. The WWE ID thing, I don't even know how that's still working yet, if it's even working much at all. So we'll kind of see what's going on with that. But I wonder if the partnership just kind of gives an extension as to while the WWE NIL stuff and the WWE ID stuff is still being well-rounded and being infiltrated, that this is a way for them to get newer stars on the NXT roster, make the shows more entertaining, and gives wrestlers on both sides just an extension platform for that. I did see something on Twitter saying how somebody said that this was like rating TNA without rating TNA in a way. It's an interesting comment. Yeah, that's my initial thoughts of that.
So here's my thoughts on it. I think this is a completely lopsided deal. Because if you look at what happened last year when they originally started working with TNA, TNA sent their women's champion, Jordan Grace. They sent Joe Hendry, which was probably one of the most over with the fan wrestlers in all of the industry. At least like he could get the social media platform that was great. And they were put in really big spotlights. And then you see who NXT gave TNA to use. And not to say any of these are terrible performers, but they're certainly not on the level of the wrestlers that TNA provided WWE. Ariana Grace, Tatum Paxley, Izzy Dame, Wendy Chu, Dante Chen. To me, this is a way for WWE to use the top talent of TNA without having to pay the TNA talent their salaries, while giving TNA the prospects and let TNA train their prospects on their TV shows. And so to me, this isn't a partnership at all. This is WWE saying to TNA, you can leech on to us and we'll carry you across to and make your stars look really good. But in return, we're just going to give you the bottom of the. We're not going to give you Ethan Page. We're not going to give you Lola Vice. We're not going to give you Roxanne Perez. We're not going to give you our top stars, but we expect you to give us your top stars to work storylines, and in return, we'll give you the up and comers and let you work them until they become popular, and then we'll just take them back and run with it and make the money from it. And I hate to draw a comparison, but I think it's fair to talk about the way that WWE does this partnership, and you look at how they're doing their partnership with the WWE ID stuff, where these indie promotions, they get a little bit of a spotlight hit, but WWE basically gains all of the benefit. And then you compare it to the way that AEW does their partnerships with like CMLL and New Japan, where New Japan Pro Wrestling's tag team champions are the Young Bucks. So AEW sending one of their top tag team talents to work in Japan as the tag team champions. Konosuke Takeshita has 3 different contracts. He has one with Dragon Pro, one with New Japan Pro Wrestling and then one with AEW. He's going all over the world. Mercedes Moné's going all over the world. Mina Shirakawa's going all over the world. So the top of AEW, is going and being part of the partnership, and then the top of New Japan's coming to AEW. The top of CMLL's coming to AEW. How many times has Chris Jericho or Bryan Danielson or Swerve Strickland gone to CMLL to wrestle, and get some of their wrestlers over? And so to me, it's just a lopsided deal. I don't have an issue with it per se. If TNA wants to work with WWE, more power to them. I think TNA's at the point now where they can't beat them. They've tried for so long to beat WWE. They might as well partner with them and at least get something out of the industry. And I'm cool with the partnership. My concern is just how lopsided is it going to be? What talent are we going to see? Because I think on NXT this past week, Masha Slamovich, which is the TNA Knockout Champion, was seen in the crowd at the NXT show. But what NXT stars are coming to TNA, and how are they treated in TNA compared to how TNA wrestlers will be treated in NXT?
I totally agree with that. I think that I have two kind of side thoughts on that. I think when I first read this, this kind of almost led me back to the whole story of WWE partnering with ECW in the late 90s, 97, where basically Vince loaned Paul Heyman about $500,000. And that was allowing Heyman to keep ECW going and surviving into at least another 3 years. ECW stars were on WWE talent were on ECW. So it was one of those things where it was a partnership, but there was a financial gain to be had from ECW. And I wonder if TNA is also reaping some sort of benefit like that, where maybe Endeavor TKO is giving them a lump sum to do better production costs, to enhance, to basically just kind of continue on. I say that, and the reason why I kind of say that as well is because TNA is having Slammiversary at the UBS Arena in Long Island, where the Islanders play. And that's a 17,000 seat arena. And that is a huge jump for TNA over the last 10 years. They have not gone into very big markets as far as arenas go. I think either Bound for Glory or Slammiversary last year drew 4,000, which was like their biggest crowd in 10 years. And this is like their first big arena show in about 10 to 15 years. And so far they've only sold like 1,100 tickets, which is, it's still 6 months away. But I wonder if that alarming number is concerning for them, and this partnership can allow maybe the transition of some of the top or mid-card NXT guys, like maybe Ethan Page, maybe a couple of NXT women, to appear on Slammiversary and to help enhance that card and to sell more tickets, or maybe an NXT versus TNA type of thing, something to actually engage the audience and to up ticket sales. And if that's the case, then I definitely see this show doing 7,000 to 10,000 tickets. If that's the case, and NXT is going to be a focal point of the Slammiversary show, and in which case I'm sure we'll hear a bunch of people saying that they sold more tickets than an AEW show. I doubt it, but we'll see. But it's an interesting timing of it all. Obviously the Royal Rumble's 2 weeks away, so gives better opportunities for us to see TNA talent in the Royal Rumble. But yeah, like you said, though, I'd be interested to see what names from NXT are going to jump over and be on Impact television. Kenny Omega was on Impact and was the world champion of Impact when TNA and AEW had a partnership during the pandemic.
Christian Cage as well.
Christian Cage, yep. And the Good Brothers were a top tag team in TNA and joined the Elite for a while there and came over to AEW. So that to me seemed like a cool partnership when that happened. But we shall see how this kind of evolves over the next little while, as not only we lead into Royal Rumble season, but PLEs and other shows that happen.
And it's timing's pretty good because TNA Genesis is this Sunday night, and they've redone the Genesis graphic to include the NXT logo. So I wonder what NXT talent may show up on Genesis this Sunday night. Am I going to buy the pay-per-view? No. Do I care? Not really. But it'll be interesting scrolling through social media to see what is going on Sunday. But my one ask of TNA with this deal is if you can put Tessa Blanchard on Monday Night Raw, I will watch Monday Night Raw. I will watch for Tessa Blanchard just to see the social media people, their head explode because she is you would think she was related to Adolf Hitler as much as everybody hates Tessa Blanchard. So put her on Monday Night Raw and I'll be happy.
Put her in the Rumble. Let's see that.
Absolutely. I would love to see it. But anyways, let's move on. One more side note before we get to kind of the main topic. I don't know if you saw it. Matt Cardona was on Ariel Helwani's podcast either late last week or early this week. And
what a wonderful journalist he is.
I can't stand Ariel Helwani. But
no.
Cardona was he had some pretty good things to say. One of the things what he said was AEW has never offered him a contract. After every single time he's gone, he's been waiting for the contract. He's been told the contract is coming, and he just hasn't got an AEW contract. Now, I don't know how much of that is just rumor and innuendo and him just trying to propagate a story, or if AEW just isn't sending him a contract. I would love to see Cardona in AEW. I think Cardona doesn't want to sign with anybody because he's the king of the indies, and that's just kind of his character, his gimmick, and him signing somewhere would kind of ruin that. But Cardona's been has done pretty well in Ring of Honor, and in AEW and every opportunity that he's got there. But the big thing that I heard him talk about was he mentioned tribalism, and this might get me in trouble a little bit on this show. I don't know with the people that might be tuning in. Thanks for everyone in the chat. People like Maria here who says Tessa is great. She doesn't deserve the hate she gets. I agree. She's an awesome wrestler. I've been a fan of Tessa since she was world champion in TNA. So, but anyways, he says tribalism is just bad for the business, essentially, and that you should like what you like and hate what you hate, but this whole thing of my team is better than your team and we should just fight and argue is just bad for the business. And so I don't know if you saw that clip, but any thoughts on Cardona's message there?
I think that, first of all, I do think that he kind of doesn't want to sign a contract exclusively for a company. Even though if he did with AEW, I'm sure that he would still be able to do some of the indie shows. So I don't think that would really prevent him from doing anything too crazy. But I think he really enjoys him just working everywhere, showing up anywhere he wants, anytime, anywhere, and just kind of being all over. And which is cool that he can come into, ROH, AEW anytime. If you wanted to go to MLW, he could. If you wanted to go to, I don't know about TNA now, but if he could, he would. GCW, Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling, just a bunch of these different organizations that he can just show up at, and it's really cool to see that. As far as the tribalism comment goes, I mean, tribalism has been in wrestling since there was two companies, NWA and WWF. I mean, you're going to have your haters for companies, your lovers, your diehards, your loyal fans, your fan base, your soldiers, whatever you want to call them. I think that because of how intense fan bases were with WCW and WWF back in the 90s, that people are yearning for that kind of same level of popularity and just going after each other on a weekly basis. And AEW is as close to a competitor, even though I don't want to say that they're directly competing with WWE, because they're not. They're a very clear number two and not close to number one, and they won't be in any of the near future. But like, you can like what you like and don't like what you don't like. You can criticize, you can hate, you can bash. I mean, you can do whatever you want. At the end of the day, I mean, it's not going to make much of a difference, because it's not like AEW is in a Monday Night War. The closest thing we had was the Wednesday Night Wars from a few years ago, and that was an NXT brand. That wasn't even Raw or SmackDown. So I mean, we're not going to get a Friday Night War. There's really going to be no way of reaching to that extent unless AEW becomes more popular on a consistent basis and then decides to show putting Collision or Dynamite against Friday nights. I don't think they would ever touch Monday nights, especially now with being on Netflix. It's not a good decision to do any of those things. But I mean, again, I think people are just trying to yearn for that Monday Night Wars version 2 type of thing. And we kind of got that a little bit in 2010 when TNA went to Monday nights for a little bit, which was a horrible decision on their end. You can thank Hulk Hogan and Eric Bischoff for that. And that was the closest we've gotten. And that only lasted for like 2 months, and then TNA went back to Thursday nights. So
right.
I think tribalism is always going to exist. And like what you like, don't like what you don't like. That's all. I mean, I kind of agree with what he says. Just it is what it is type of thing.
Right. I think tribalism is decent. Like it serves its purpose. You're always going to have your loyal supporters on anything. You can look at like Star Wars versus Star Trek, or Harry Potter versus Lord of the Rings, or DC versus Marvel. You're always going to have people that support one over the other, and that's great. I think that it reaches a boiling point when like I would have hated to see what Twitter would have looked like in 1997 or whenever Eric Bischoff was winning those 83 weeks in a row, because like it would have been a clusterfuck in the IWC. And when it gets to the point of like, there are people on social media on both sides of the aisle. There's AEW fans who trash WWE, and then WWE fans that trash AEW. Not because they genuinely care about the other product, but simply because it's so easy now, especially with the way that you can monetize your content on social media, to just post clickbait post, get people fed up, get a reaction, and then make thousands of dollars off of people's emotions. And so I feel like a lot of this tribalism stuff that you see on social media is just, it's not real. Like I don't think a lot of the pro WWE or pro AEW guys at the end of the day really give a crap about what the other company does. They just post what they post because they know they can make a lot of money off of it. And good for them for following that grift. But I don't know. There comes a point to where the discussion just becomes a bunch of disgusting bullcrap that really doesn't do anything for either company. I think AEW existing helps WWE, and WWE existing helps AEW. But anyway, let's get to the main point. is AEW back? And we're going to talk about Maximum Carnage a little bit. The numbers came out. The numbers came out this just a few hours ago, and Kenny Omega might be the ratings king that we have been waiting for. He is a draw. 2 weeks ago, AEW drew on Max the first episode on simulcasted on TBS and Max. They drew on TBS, 588,000 viewers. About what they were running. Now, this doesn't include the Max live streams. I don't think we'll ever get to know exactly how many live streams that Max runs live at the 8 o'clock hour until there's a way to pull that data. Last week they ran 615,000, so slight bump. Kenny Omega wrestles Brian Cage, and it's averaging 679,000 viewers on TBS last night. Kenny Omega's back. We get some big returns. Samoa Joe returns. Megan Bayne is back. It seems like AEW might be in a position where the ratings are increasing. We're heading towards, honestly, the part of AEW's year where they usually start doing really well with storylines leading into Revolution, into Double or Nothing, into the summer. It seems like the spring into summer is where AEW does really well with their storylines, and then they kind of die going into the fall. But here we go. Is AEW back? What shall you say?
It's really early to tell. The ratings numbers they look good for sure, especially compared to the last couple of weeks. To see it almost back up to 700,000, so that's really good on them. Kenny is a draw for AEW fans and AEW loyalists, and I think he's been sorely missed for a while. I mean, we need to see a trend. I mean, in the last 2 weeks, it's gone up over the last 2 weeks, which is great. You want to see a trend continue. It's going to be hard to sustain that, but it'd be interesting to kind of see what happens from here on out. Ratings wise, I'm actually really surprised that the numbers are the way they are, considering that they are on Max. And I figured that a lot more people would just be watching on Max, especially after Raw's being on Netflix, that people are getting used to the wrestling on the streaming thing, that they would have all just kind of converted over to Max. So it's good to see that. But I mean, obviously people still watch regular television and TBS is in a lot of homes. So that's probably, a big catalyst as to why the ratings are what they are. And we can actually view those. But just like with the Raw on Netflix and AEW on Max, we're never going to see those numbers. The biggest thing is that there's no Nielsen deal with the streaming platforms. So the numbers that we pretty much see, unless they do a working partnership in conjunction with Nielsen, when they release the ratings, like that's why we were able to see the ratings for the NFL on Netflix. Same thing with, I believe, the Jake Paul and the Tyson fight on Netflix. We were able to see those ratings. But hey, I don't really care too much about ratings. The more they dip, the more, yes, it's concerning. But at the same time, now that we're on Max, it's really weird. Like I said, I thought for sure that we would actually kind of see the viewership dip a little bit more ratings wise because more people would be watching it on Max. But hey, it's interesting telltale sign. But like I said, it's going to be interesting to see what happens over the next couple of weeks. I will say that in the early portion of 2025, that AEW has done a really good job with picking and choosing their venues, the smaller venues. They're filling them up. It looks much better. It sounds pretty good. Crowds are hot, which is great.
Right.
They're into the storylines of the matches. Though I find it very interesting that of all places last night, that this music hall, which is a pretty decent sized looking venue, they got pyro, and some of these other venues do not get pyro. Some people made a big thing about that on social media. I, for one, I'm like, yeah, it's cool, but it's all depending on the area you're in.
I think they got pyro simply because it was a themed version of Dynamite. Like they always give the Fight for the Fallen or the Maximum Carnage or the Grand Slam. We'll get to Grand Slam in a minute. Their pyro. But yeah, I thought the vibe of the crowd last night was really great. I thought last night's episode was really, really well done. People like to hate on Ricochet, and this might be the hottest take I make all night. I think he's probably one of the biggest heels in AEW right now. The heat that he got last night was on the level of Dominic Mysterio level heat, with the way like he couldn't talk. The crowd wouldn't let him talk. It was great, and his story with Swerve Strickland's just heating up, and I'm ready to see this feud going into the next couple of months. A couple key things that I found interesting before we jump forward into some other stuff. AEW starting to book shows more than a week out. We have a match booked for 3 weeks from now in Atlanta, Georgia. This is what we need them to do to start selling some tickets in some of these venues. Start giving people reasons to go to these shows. I don't see a downfall for this. This is what they've been needing to do. Hopefully, with Kenny coming back and Samoa Joe back, now we can start pushing Revolution. We can start pushing All In and start filling up some of these shows and doing pretty decent numbers. I agree with you. The smaller venues look great on TV. To have essentially a full crowd, and you don't have half the arena with the lights turned off to hide all the hidden or the unused seats that are tarped off. Just the optics look really good. I like the different venues that they're going to. The stage design was pretty interesting last night. So, all in all, production wise, it was good. And they're getting better there. Moving on, Megan Bayne is in AEW. Fightful announced that she has signed with AEW, and she will be on TV full time going forward. And it looks like she might be in a big feud, starting out with Jamie Hayter or Chris Statlander, or both of them. She's finally here. What were your first impressions of Megan Bayne last night?
Well, it's about damn time that they finally showed her on TV. I think that this report has been out for months that she had been signed with AEW and just hadn't shown up.
Not months.
I almost kind of wonder.
It's been about a year and a half.
Yeah. I think that maybe I almost feel like maybe she was going to take the Camille spot before Camille showed up. And I think that was one of the early reports, was that maybe she was going to be Monet's bodyguard type thing. I don't know if that's still going to be the case or not, but she had a really good showing last night. I had that dominant feature to her. She's tall. She was taller than Statlander. It was quite impressive. I know it's been 3-4 years since she was on Darker Elevation, so I haven't quite remembered her in-ring style or just her presence of what she looked like. I don't remember her being that tall, but she was tall. They made her look good in the match. And then AEW they do these things on social media where we'll do kind of some of the backstage stuff that you may not see on Dynamite or Collision. So they had a quick catch up with Megan after the match, and the backstage interviewer was trying to get a word with her, I guess, to comment on the match. And she just kind of had this stare and looked at him like, get the hell away from me type of thing. And then they cut it off. And I'm like, yep, this is the start of that push. I don't know, maybe she's going to go after the TBS title eventually, or maybe even Mariah. They'll the whole thing with her and Tony is going to be very interesting as we go into the Australian show next month, how that whole thing is going to turn around. But I definitely think in the summer, early fall, that they're going to be pushing Megan. And I think for sure she's going to be dethroning either Mercedes or Mariah for their title. Yeah, good showing last night, and it'll be interesting to kind of see how she's going to be portrayed going forward. Slowly but surely, AEW's women's roster is becoming very, very good. They're doing really cool things with them. That was the first women's casino battle royal match, was it not? Maybe not the first, maybe one of the first. Yeah, that's awesome. I'm quite sure we're going to get a women's Continental Classic this year at the end of the year. So yeah, starting to see some cool things with the women's division. We're getting more storylines, and that's great to see. So yeah, I think this is a good, important year for AEW's women's division to, again, elevate themselves, have better in-depth storytelling, storylines, and overall just being more legit of a division.
I liked what they did with the gauntlet last night for the women because, yeah, it was kind of short, 13 or 14 minutes, I think. I don't.
How many competitors were in the match? It was like seven or eight, and it wasn't a lot. I think the men usually have more, but what they did with the 7 or 8, they were able to either create or expand upon, in my opinion, 3 or 4 different storylines. So we have the continuation of Julia Hart and Jamie Hayter and that kind of thing. But we also have now Julia Hart misted Harley Cameron. And remember, when Malachi misted Julia, that's when Julia kind of started turning to the dark side. It'll be interesting to see what Harley Cameron does with the mist. Before Sky Blue destroyed her ankle, she was starting to kind of be the girl that was teaming up with Julia Hart. Hopefully we get Sky Blue back at some point soon. And then Willow Nightingale made an appearance. Just her and Statlander in that. Are they going to get back together kind of thing? Statlander feels bad for turning on her. That storyline's kind of weird, kind of out of nowhere. I don't know where it's really going, but it's there and it's being continued, and I'm willing to give it some time to progress. We have Megan Bayne out there, and she makes her presence known, that she's trying to dominate the division. Like, her versus Statlander is going to be a really good match if they had a one-on-one match. And then at the end, Toni Storm continues this idea that she's just some inexperienced rookie, winning again with a simple tie up type move, tie up there, and she's fighting Mariah May. Mariah May's commentary was great of Megan Bayne, especially. I think she was like, she didn't even get a graphic. Where's her graphic? Her just anxious excitement of Toni Storm winning, and she has to fight her again. I think Toni Storm and Mariah May is probably going to be dragged out throughout the early months of the year, and we probably get the ending of that feud probably at Double or Nothing, I would think. Because I think the idea is probably going to be Toni Storm's going to go through all of her character changes in AEW. So at some point, she's probably going to lose to Mariah at the Australian show. Though it wouldn't surprise me if she wins because Toni Storm is Australian. But anyway, I think she'll lose. And then she'll go through to her like outcast character where she's kind of and this different style of wrestling, different attire, going through that style, and it ending with her rejoining back up with the timeless Toni Storm gimmick. I think that's the end goal, is she's going to end up being timeless Toni Storm again. That's just where I see it. I don't know. I'm not booking the show. That's just kind of where I see it. But I liked what they did with the gauntlet. They were able to progress stories for a company, or for a company, or for what the fans say, this company can't tell stories.
they have some pretty good stories coming into this. Ricochet and Swerve, probably my most invested storyline. I think this has the potential to be the Hangman and Swerve storyline of last year. The women have some minor stories. Really don't know what's next for Mercedes Moné in terms of who's her next opponent, but I think we'll get to that point here in the quick near future. And then the whole Jon Moxley thing, it is what it is. It's going to take its time to get to where they want it to go. I think ultimately they're waiting for Darby, and that's going to take some time because Darby's out of action until he's either dead at the top of Mount Everest or back in AEW with a flag on the top of Mount Everest. And so I think that's what they're waiting for. And so in the meantime, I'm just going to enjoy the feud. Powerhouse Hobbs, they need to put the rocket on that man. He looked really good, really strong last night, even in his loss. One thing I do ask is that MVP doesn't wrestle ever again. I wasn't a big fan of that trios match last night, though. I don't know. I just feel like Bobby Lashley is a better singles wrestler than tag team wrestler. And MVP is too old to be in the ring. And then I have mixed emotions on the MJF Jeff Jarrett thing. Excuse you. I get it. People are mad that was the longest segment on the show last night, but this is Jeff Jarrett's way out. He's trying to help the young guys get over. There were some zingers that were good. I like the MJF line about Kurt Angle being Karen's ex-wife, and he's had an Olympic gold medalist balls on his mouth or whatever. Like, and if Jeff Jarrett shows up, your company's about to die, kind of thing. I thought it was good. MJF is, I don't know, when he's in the mid card, he's just kind of mid to me. When he's in the upper card, like that's usually when MJF shines, and he's just kind of stuck here in a place where he doesn't have a spot at the top of the card, and he's kind of busy with the movies and stuff. So I don't know. Overall, pretty decent show. I want to end this part of the show by saying I don't think AEW ever left. I think AEW's been here forever. They're doing what they're always been doing, and they're not back because they never left. And so I'm a big fan of the trajectory. This part of the year is my favorite part of the year in pro wrestling. We have Revolution and Double or Nothing and Forbidden Door, and then all within the next 5 to 6 months. So, anyways, let's end the show talking about the Aussie show. Why don't we? Let's start some more shit, and then we'll end with reading some of these comments, and then we'll start with this one. He says, "Grand Slam is more like grand shit." That's great. That's great. This is what the critique is now. AEW basically announced last night that Grand Slam Australia is not a pay-per-view. It's basically replacing Collision on the 15th of February. And it's streaming on Max and broadcasting on TNT. And apparently the All-Star Game is also on TNT. And the WWE fans that hate AEW for whatever reason are just having a field day with this for a minor error. Now, I don't know why the fans assumed that this was going to be a pay-per-view. I'll admit, I thought it was a pay-per-view, but I guess it was because when they announced the show, it was at the time when the rumor was that AEW was expanding to 12 pay-per-views. And so I think the assumption was this is going to be a pay-per-view. But Grand Slam has never been a pay-per-view. And I don't think AEW thought that this is going to be that big of a deal that the social media world would riot because they apparently lied to the Aussie fans that they're not getting a pay-per-view, they're getting a taped TV show. We talked about it a couple weeks ago. Like, I'm just happy it's not a house show that's not televised. Like, the fact that they're on tape delay doesn't bother me. I wasn't going to watch the show live anyway. I was going to watch it on delay anyways. Like I did Wrestle Dream this year and Wrestle Dynasty. Or not Wrestle Dream, Wrestle Kingdom, and Wrestle Dynasty. And I don't know, it's just they can't critique the stuff that happens live on air because the stories are actually pretty good. The in-ring stuff is actually pretty good. So there's nothing to critique there. So they have to find something. They have to find something to complain about. And this is the most dumbest thing to complain about. Obviously they're going to make it work, even if it's not shown at 8 o'clock on TNT. I don't know if people realize this. TNT has two different TV channels. TNT East and TNT West. So it may be that it's showing at 8 o'clock Pacific time on TNT West. For the fans that want to watch it on TV, they can watch it on TNT West at 8 o'clock Pacific time, 11 o'clock Eastern. Way after all of the All-Star stuff on that Saturday night is over, you can watch it there. And if you want to watch it live at 8 o'clock Eastern, you can watch it on Max. Eventually, I think that the idea is going to be that Max is where a lot of these type of things are going to be held. And this is just the dumbest thing for the fans to complain about. At least we're getting something out of this show, and it's not just a house show that's not televised and in front of 17,000 fans or whatever. Your thoughts, my friend?
Listen. I think everybody, every company, they all mess up. It happens. It sucks. And it feels like sometimes the mess ups happen more frequently in some instances. So I feel like it's just one of those things where people are always going to capitalize whenever AEW makes a mistake of some sort. And I don't think that's fair. I mean, like I said, everybody has mess ups. Some people do very few because they've done it longer and they can mitigate or hide those things, or more so their mess ups or botches in the ring and not so much, backstage behind the scenes type of stuff. But we have said that from the very beginning that this show has just been so mismanaged. I mean,
can I interrupt you real quick before
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I just had to go back and look at AEW's tweets because sometimes these social media influencers get things wrong. So AEW on the graphic for the Tony Storm Mariah May match has it TNT and stream on Max. There's no time on this card. You go back to this Saturday, there's a time on it. Saturday, 8 o'clock. So this is probably what's going to happen because they do it all the time during the NCAA tournament and all of this. Immediately after the All-Star stuff that happens on Saturday night on TNT, they'll just jump right into AEW. There's no set time. This is just dumb stuff that they're trying to start. But anyways, I'll let you continue.
Yeah, either that or they may prelude the All-Star stuff. Just kind of depends because the way it's read, it's going to be a tape delay show, which I'm okay with because your main source of your audience is in the United States. 8 p.m. Australian time is what 2, 3, 4, 5 in the morning here or something like that. I mean, it's late to where nobody on the East Coast is going to want to watch it live. And so I'm okay with it being on a tape delay. If I was AEW, I would probably try to limit that tape delay as much as possible because people are going to spread, what happens, the spoilers and this and that. So maybe try to do it at noon, try to do it at 2, 1, 2, 3, something maybe preluding the All-Star game, or the All-Star festivities. I understand that doing it after the All-Star festivities, you're hoping to get the carryover from that audience over to the AEW show, and that's understandable, and I get it. That's probably the better route anyways. But also, if you're going to be doing it right before the All-Star game, people are going to be – the festivities are going to be wanting to tune into that. So they may catch the last few minutes. They may catch the last hour of Grand Slam Australia. But we'll kind of see how that whole thing turns out. But, yeah, this whole thing has just been mismanaged from the start. Announcing it at this stadium, and then just the whole calamity with the ticket stuff, ticket site going up, ticket site going down, and then finally them moving it to the Brisbane Entertainment Center, which I've made this point that, hey, it's a 17,000 seat arena. They're going to sell out the arena, which is great. It's going to look good. It's a success from that aspect of, even though how poorly mismanaged this event has been, that is going to be a sellout show in a brand new market for AEW and an untapped market for them. So it has its good probable outcomes, but the success of the show is going to determine not only how the crowd's going to react, the size of the crowd, but just how well the event is done, especially if they're on a tape delay, that they're going to make it as best of an overall show as possible, because it's going to give them time to edit or whatever and this and that. But hopefully this is a huge lesson learned for AEW and Tony Khan that, listen, if you're going to do these out-of-market events, you've got to do a tip-top job from beginning to end, because this was a complete 360 from what the Wembley shows were like. As soon as Wembley was announced for All In, both Londons, I mean, they were hyping this thing up for months and months and months and months. Banners, Minitron stuff, social media stuff, mentioning it on TV for the tickets. I mean, they had a heavy push for the marketing side of both of those shows, and it was well managed from beginning to end. I don't know why the Australia show was not like that at all. But yeah, I'm just glad they're finally mentioning it on TV. We've got a match now, so now it's just a matter of the next month for the build-up for that show, and kind of getting the logistics side of it correct with the Max stuff. If it's gonna be on TV, when and where. They may switch it to TBS if they're gonna have the TNT thing. I doubt they're gonna do it at the same time as the All-Star festivities. They're either gonna do it before it or after it. There's no way that they're gonna do it the same night, same time. But yeah, it's not a good look on AEW for how they managed this show. But again, some of the positives you can take away from it, hopefully can make the event be more of a good ending than a very bad beginning and middle. But we'll kind of have to wait and see what that looks like.
My last point, and then we'll end the show at this point here. My last point into AEW's defense is, it makes me feel like they never considered this show to be pay-per-view level quality, and so maybe they just didn't think that the level of marketing as a show like Wembley, or All In, which is their biggest pay-per-view of the year, in my opinion, it just didn't compare. And I'll give them this: they really confused us from the idea of, is this a pay-per-view or not. They announced it at Wembley last year, and they made it sound like it was going to be a big show, and it's just and I get the confusion, and they really did. They kind of mentioned it at Wembley and then didn't say anything else afterwards, but it makes it feel like, all right, I guess maybe then this is just another episode of Dynamite, and we're just going to market it like we would every other episode of Dynamite. And I don't know how they've advertised it in Australia. I don't follow a whole lot of people in Australia, but maybe they have more boots on the ground there. I don't know. And I don't know. I don't want to go out and straight up say like they just dropped the ball on this, because maybe this was their plan all along, is to market it like another episode of Dynamite or Collision. But anyways, let's see if we got any good chats real quick. Mr. We Too Deep says MJF is washed, lost his aura. I think the Adam Cole stuff maybe kind of caused him to lose it a little bit, but he's still MJF. He's probably he'll once he gets back in the running for the main title, he'll be back to normal. He's just, to me, he's just not a guy fit for the mid card. He has to be big time or no time, in my opinion. That's about it. Any last words before we hit the road tonight, my friend?
I think Randall is ridiculous when he says we're coming up with some BS as excuses or stupid shit as excuses. I think they're valid. I'd like to see you try to plan and execute a multi-million dollar corporation, and execute the plan, sir. If you think you can do it better, do it. Yeah. But listen, hey, I think that even though they had to move arenas, they weren't going to sell 30,000, 40,000 tickets. I'm pretty sure the biggest name in the game struggled to sell tickets for a stadium show too.
Right.
It's a hard market, but for a brand that is 5 years old, to sell out an arena internationally to begin with is pretty impressive. TNA did that, but it took them 11 years to get to England. That was their first international show, was in England. They sold it out. It took them 12 years to get over there. It took AEW 4 years to get to Wembley, and now 5 years to get to Australia, which is pretty impressive. They're going to sell out a 17,000 arena, which is, again, impressive for a young company with, from a casual perspective, not very many known stars. But, hey, what do we know?
I was just thinking about it on the way home from work today. Not only did Tony Khan essentially have to build AEW from the ground up without any footing in the wrestling business. Like everyone hates when we say like WWE had a 65-year advantage, blah blah blah. Not only did they have a 65-year advantage, Vince McMahon didn't have to start from the ground up. He inherited an already popular wrestling brand from his father that just sold him the business. Tony Khan had to start this business from ground zero, and he's bound to make mistakes. We'll call him out. We've called him out the whole time on this show. We've called him out about how the women's division sucked, and it's getting better now. We've called him out on a bunch of things. And he's going to make his share of mistakes. But if Vince McMahon had to start from the ground up with his own wrestling company, he didn't take the WWF or whatever Vince Sr. had and what he had already built. Could Vince McMahon have created a company as successful as what the WWE is today? I don't know if he can or can't, and I don't think we'll see. We'll be able to see at this point. Vince has kind of tarnished his legacy in the business with all these allegations. But yeah, we'll end it there. It's going to be an exciting run leading up to Grand Slam in Australia and Revolution in March in LA, and then into Double or Nothing. We got some big stories in AEW. But the big thing is watch what you want to watch. Don't watch what you don't want to watch, but just enjoy wrestling. That's what we really care about here on the Beyond the Junkyard podcast. We're pro wrestling fans, and I don't care what you like or don't like. As long as you enjoy pro wrestling, you're welcome here in the community. Go to junkyardmediagroup.com, join our Discord, and join our community there. Until next time, my friends, we'll see you next Thursday. And as my guy KDAWG always says, hopefully this is a saucy Sunday or Saturday. I think you play on Saturday. A saucy Saturday for you this weekend, and hopefully I have a saucy Sunday. But until next week, KDAWG, say your words.
Go Commanders. Let me get some merchandise, but most importantly, stay saucy, friends.
Beyond